What's going on YouTube? It's TH back again with another video. Today I'm giving you my picks for the conference championship games being played this weekend. Really excited for this weekend of football. Hopefully you all enjoy today's video, and if you do, hit that like button. It would help me out a ton. If you're new to the channel, we passed 500 subscribers. Thank you all again so much. If you're new, want to help us keep growing, hit that big red subscribe button. And of course, most importantly, give me your game predictions. I even got score predictions in today's video. Let me hear yours down in the comment section, as well as some X factors for each game. Love to have your thoughts in the comment section. Let's jump right into it. I decided to go ahead and throw in my score predictions. I haven't previously done that. Might change up how I do my picks next year. Maybe do a picks league and then have some guests on. We talk about maybe 3 to 5 games in a week. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. But for this AFC Championship game, I mean, there's a lot of different X factors I could talk about, but chieftain of them, Joe Burrow versus the Blitz. When these two teams met in the regular season, he was the top graded quarterback against pressure. And he diced up. I mean, this play, the picture on your screen, is from a 3rd and 27 where Spags sent the house at Burrow, lofted up to Chase. Chase beats Felton. You know, the rest is history. So, you know, what is the MO for this game for Steve Spagnuolo? Is he going to continue to apply a lot of pressure? Is it, you know, maybe only in early downs? Is he going to, if he gets in 3rd and long spots, force Burrow to just face a 4-man rush? We'll see. But that is one of those things where I'm keeping my eyes on it. And honestly, if Kansas City continuously shells out that pressure. We saw Stafford carve it up last week against the Bucs. We already saw Burrow do it once against the Chiefs this year. I think that plays to the advantage of the Bengals. And then on the other side of the ball, Cincinnati's had a lot of playmakers make some big plays, right? Like Trey Hendrickson's been really nice this year. You get the pick from Jesse Bates last week. Mike Hilton creates a turnover for himself. Logan Wilson's been pretty solid, but this Chiefs team has really picked it up, and you know their offense was rolling when these two teams met in the regular season. But I think now it's even hit a different gear. I mean, you know, part of it, we are coming off of, you know, maybe one of the best games in NFL history between the Chiefs and the Bills last week. So I don't want to get too carried away and think, oh well, the Chiefs are just unstoppable offensively because the Bills had no answer. That's not necessarily going to be the case. And you know, there are some spots where, you know, this front four, like DJ Reader, took away the run game for Tennessee last week. What does that mean for Jerick McKinnon and you know, CEH? If that running game's not there, how much harder does that make Patrick Mahomes in the passing attack? You know, the lives of Patrick Mahomes, I should say. Those are just some of the things. And, you know, Mike Hilton, one of the best slot corners in football. Don't know exactly who he'll see for a majority of this contest, but that's interesting. Jesse Bates is so good in coverage. Do you just put him on Travis Kelce? There's a lot of, you know, different matchups that are intriguing, and I don't want to say that the Bengals have no shot, but this Kansas City offense is playing like we kind of expect him to coming into the season. And then the last thing, Chris Jones versus Bengals interior offensive line. Jeffrey Simmons had a day, 4 sacks against the Bengals, IOL, and Chris Jones is of the same caliber, maybe even a little better. So he could be in for a huge day. And last week, Joe Burrow took a ton of sacks, and you know, again, a lot of it being supplied by Jeffrey Simmons, 4 sacks and a ton of pressures to go with it. But you know, what does that mean for Burrow? Is he at least cognizant more maybe of it this week in filtering out how he moves around the pocket and how he handles that pressure? That's going to be a huge X factor. Ultimately, this year he hasn't been all that great when it comes to feeling out the pocket and, you know, maneuvering against pressure between the tackles. And in specific, when he gets IDL pressure from the interior, that is where there could be some problems. And Chris Jones, obviously one of the best in the biz doing that. He also creates, and then they can use Melvin Ingram on stunts, try to attack that IOL even more and get him moving to the inside, attacking guards and centers and things of that nature. So all that to say, I'm going to go with the Chiefs in this one. I think I like the Bengals +7 though. So if you're betting this, I think the Bengals are able to keep this game close. You know, even go back to the regular season, it looked like the Chiefs were going to pull away. They were up by 14. Cincinnati, you know, willed their way back. Burrow carved up the Chiefs and got them back into, you know, ultimately a win. But I think they can play this game into a single possession type of contest. So 7 points. Give me the Bengals there, but picking a winner, I'll go Chiefs 31-27. And now for the NFC Championship game. Actually, I don't know if I necessarily like the under, but with this pick, I did hit the under at 46 points. I really wouldn't touch that line. This game could go in a ton of different directions. I could see this becoming an offensive shootout. You know, Debo's making plays all over the field, and Brandon Ayuk's got some big plays. George Kittle's running away from everybody. And on the other side, it's, you know, bombs to OBJ, Cooper Kupp forcing missed tackle. I could also see this turning into legitimately a 17-14 defensive grind. I really don't know what to expect. That said, I am really intrigued by Von Miller has taken it to a whole nother level. Vintage Von Miller over the last 2 weeks. And him versus whoever the tackle is, especially if it's Mike McGlinchey. Well, last week there was a lot of conversation about Von Miller versus if Tristan Wirfs, doesn't play, that backup. And Miller won that battle, to say the least. But Mike McGlinchey, much better run blocker than his pass blocker, so there still might be an edge there. But really, I put it on here. Von Miller versus Trent Williams, if that comes to fruition, that is some must-see TV, the way Miller's been playing. And, of course, Williams been maybe the best offensive lineman in football this entire season. I would say he's been the best offensive lineman in the NFL this year. So that would be a really fun battle to watch. But then, of course, when you talk about Los Angeles pass rush, San Francisco interior offensive line, Alex Mack trying to hold his own against Aaron Donald. Not many have had a whole lot of success. Now, granted, Mack is probably one of the better centers in the NFL still, but we'll see. Aaron Donald single-handedly could take this game over, and sometimes he does that. So maybe I'm keying in on Von Miller when I shouldn't be. And then some of the other matchups, 49ers secondary versus Kupp and OBJ. And I put no double teams this week because, after that first, drive and halfway through the second, the Niners were not letting Devontae Adams get the football easy. 2 players over him. He was getting the bracket coverage. You can't do that against the Rams, right? With the Packers, you could say, all right, MVS beat me. All right, Allen Lazard beat me. Robert, whoever. With the 49ers, where they're at this week, it's like, okay, well, we could double Kupp. Okay, well, that's what the Cardinals did. And next thing you know, end zone fade, touchdown, OBJ in the wild card round. Okay, well, we'll shade over the top against OBJ. Well, that means you're leaving Cooper Kupp one-on-one against a far inferior cornerback. So you have to play them honest here with the Rams, and obviously that's a huge advantage for LA, and that's just talking about Kupp, OBJ, Van Jefferson's a big play waiting to happen. Tyler Higbee's been really solid, and then what you can do with the running backs trying to take advantage of, Fred Warner's fantastic in coverage, maybe some of those other linebackers against the likes of Sony Michel, Cam Akers, trying to defend them out of the backfield, no easy task. And then lastly, the 49ers run game. So I put that as its own point because it's so good, it's just so far above the normal run game that when you can average almost 6-7 yards a carry, when the 49ers can get to when they are really churning it out, getting a lot of pancake blocks from those guys up front, it becomes almost as efficient as their passing game. And when you can run the football as efficient as your passing attack, especially with Jimmy G, nowhere near close. Jimmy G throwing it short more often than not, letting the guys like Ayuk and Samuel be yak generators. Kittle, same thing. There is an argument to be said, just don't put the football in Jimmy G Garoppolo's hands. And if you take away Jimmy G as a detrimental factor, potentially costing the game for the 49ers, that really opens up my eyes. And to me, it opens up and widens their win chance and their win probability. So if San Francisco, especially in the first drive or two, can really establish the run game and, churn out 5 to 7 yards per carry, it'll be interesting to see. Jimmy Garoppolo could escape this game with less than 20 pass attempts, less than 15 maybe. Keep in mind, when they beat Green Bay in the Nfc Championship game a couple years ago, he only threw 8 passes. So, he was kind of Mac Jones before the Mac Jones game this year. But that 49ers run game is just so far above the norm and the standard for running a game that it could single-handedly take over an offense, especially when you factor in Deebo Samuel might be, if you were to just call him a running back, one of the most talented running backs, maybe the most talented running back in football, and he's been, efficiency-wise, one of the best players at that position when he's gotten chances. And then Elijah Mitchell's no scrub, so you have a nice rotation between those two. And then Ayuk can do similar things there. So I think there's a lot of weapons to be utilized by Kyle Shanahan in the backfield, let alone what some of those guys can do on the outside and the slot, et cetera, et cetera. And also, I had to talk about this. Putting Trent Williams in motion last week was a stroke of genius. Everyone has given Shanahan his praise, but I had to do the same. I had never seen something like that, and when you have a dude like Trent Williams in motion, plowing through a human being that's built in a lab like Rashawn Gary, wow, that is a stroke of inspiration. And I think it ultimately kind of changes the draft stock for a few different players because, we've seen the Ravens do it with guys like Patrick Ricard. And, the player who immediately came to mind was Quinn Miners. He ultimately was a third-round pick. But let's say he doesn't go to the Senior Bowl last year and ultimately becomes this, 6th, 7th round kid out of a D3 school, but he graded out pretty well at the Combine, showed some athleticism. After you see how Trent Williams can be used, that 6th offensive lineman becomes that much more valuable, especially if it's a guy who can run a solid 40, showcases some agility and some suddenness, explosive ability too. So it's really interesting because it might have bumped up the stock of, a fringe draft versus UDFA player might sneak into the 6th or 7th round, or a guy who's in that 6th, 7th round conversation might move up late 4th into the 5th as a team's like, hey, we get that 6th offensive line. I think we can do a lot of creative things and emulate what Shanahan did with Williams there. I might be getting ahead of myself, but it's really interesting to see how those chess pieces, when you see other teams do it, how does that affect your board in the game that you're playing? So back to my original point, 49ers run game is so different than most rushing attacks that it could take over this game, especially when you have a guy like Deebo Samuel as one of the most efficient running backs in the NFL, if that's all he were to play. But that is going to do it for today's video. These have been my conference championship picks. I'm not saying that I know what's going to happen. These are just my picks, predictions, score picks, all that fun stuff. Love to have yours down in the comment section. Who do you think wins? What do you think the score is? And what do you think are some of the X factors? Once we talk about these games on Monday, what do you think the conversation revolves around? That's what I was aiming for here with these X factors. Love to have your thoughts down in the comment section. And hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, hit that like button. It would help me and my channel out a ton. If you're new to the channel, want to see more football content, just hit that big red subscribe button. That's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. Until next time, my name is Tej, and I'm signing off.